When consciousness emerges into this world, it brings more than a physical vessel. It carries a sacred obligation. According to Helena Blavatsky, each spark of divine awareness chooses its earthly embodiment deliberately, not through random circumstance, but through cosmic intention. Before we draw our initial breath, the great masters of wisdom reveal to us the intricate pattern of our forthcoming life, the spiritual lessons awaiting discovery, the souls whose paths will intersect with ours, the trials we must withstand, and the wisdom we are destined to cultivate within the material realm. The ancient scrolls of the Akashic Library, Blavatsky tells us, contain these agreements made between incarnations, written not in ink, but in the subtle energies of eternal commitment. Yet not all who journey into flesh remember their cosmic contract. The Theosophical teachings reveal how some souls become entirely consumed by materialistic pursuits, their higher purpose obscured by the dense fog of physical existence. The crystalline clarity of their pre-birth vision becomes clouded by attachment, identification with the ephemeral, and the intoxicating illusion of separateness. As the physical form ages and eventually surrenders to transformation, that moment of transition brings both illumination and profound recognition. In her most esoteric writings, Blavatsky described the experience of souls who wandered from their intended path. They discover themselves not in a realm of suffering, but in a dimension of subtle vibration, a place she called the astral threshold, a state of consciousness rather than a location where reflection replaces regret. Here they encounter not fearsome judges but Mahatmas, enlightened presences who offer not condemnation, but compassionate guidance towards self-understanding. The universal truth unfolds before them, not as harsh judgment, but as gentle revelation. The soul perceives its earthly existence from an elevated perspective, witnessing each decision point, each moment when universal brotherhood might have transcended selfishness, when spiritual insight could have overcome ignorance, when courage could have vanquished doubt. Blavatsky explained that this review serves not to induce shame, but to foster understanding. The soul perceives with perfect clarity what it refused to acknowledge during embodiment. Within this crystalline awareness arises the most profound realization, not because cosmic law punishes, but because the individual consciousness recognizes how it temporarily forgot its connection to the universal harmonic. Blavatsky reminds us, the true measurement of success is not worldly accomplishment, but the degree to which one remembers and embodies one's divine nature despite the veils of matter. In this understanding, the after-death state becomes not a tribunal, but a sanctuary of learning. Every apparent failure becomes the sacred seed from which greater wisdom will eventually flower. When the physical form dissolves and consciousness begins its journey through the seven veils of existence, there is no dramatic departure, no spectacular transition, only a gradual awakening. For many souls, this passage unfolds with serene recognition. But for those who strayed significantly from their cosmic purpose, Blavatsky revealed that the initial sensation is one of disorientation. They experience consciousness without density, standing at the threshold between dimensions. They perceive familiar forms, those they cherished, their dwelling places, the celestial canopy, but everything appears translucent, shimmering, transitory, like a reflection that cannot be grasped. Helena described this realm as one of opalescent light and profound stillness, a state of being that mirrors the inner condition of the consciousness itself. If one's incarnation harmonized with universal principles, the surrounding light appears radiant and welcoming. But if the soul's purpose went unfulfilled, the radiance dims as though filtered through the veil of its own unresolved patterns. This is not punishment, but resonance, Blavatsky insisted. Each individualized consciousness experiences precisely the vibrational state it has cultivated within itself. In this subtle state, the Mahatmas appear, beings of profound compassion and ancient wisdom who approach not with stern judgment, but with infinite patience. They assist the consciousness in remembering its true cosmic identity. Blavatsky wrote that they communicate not through language but through direct transmission of understanding that permeates the very essence of being. These masters of ancient wisdom do not criticize or rebuke. Instead, they gently illuminate the book of life. The soul begins to perceive. It witnesses moments when it was offered opportunities to heal ancient wounds, forgive ancient adversaries, or elevate others toward truth, yet chose instead to remain enshrouded in the illusion of separation. It recalls promises made between incarnations, to cultivate wisdom, to transcend fear, to serve as a beacon for others, and how readily those sacred commitments dissolved amid the intense sensations of physical existence. For many souls, this realization brings a profound wave of recognition. Blavatsky observed, some consciousnesses express not terror, but profound realization. They understand how much of their potential for universal compassion remained dormant, how many opportunities for expansion of awareness passed unnoticed. Yet even in this state of recognition, hope remains ever present. For the moment understanding dawns, healing begins. Blavatsky compared this process to the lotus emerging from muddy waters. The consciousness faces not external judgment, but the pristine truth of its own eternal nature. The cosmic light awaits in patient silence, allowing each spark of divine awareness to choose, remain in self-created limitation, or step forward into expanded consciousness. Those who embrace their reflection begin ascending through successive planes of vibration, each one more refined, more harmonious than the last. But those who resist their own reflection linger in what Blavatsky called the astral threshold, a state between complete illusion and full realization, where time seems to lose meaning. Still, even there, no consciousness remains abandoned. Blavatsky insisted that no fragment of the divine essence can ever be truly lost. The universal harmony waits with infinite patience until every being recognizes its source. What appears as failure within one incarnation becomes the preparation for subsequent growth, the fertile soil from which the seed of divine wisdom eventually blossoms. In these luminous dimensions, the profound truth emerges with perfect clarity. The cosmos operates not through punishment, but through progressive evolution. The soul's temporary disharmony never becomes eternal. It serves as the teacher that guides consciousness back toward universal harmony and toward the purpose it once vowed to fulfill. According to Helena Blavatsky, no consciousness enters the physical dimension accidentally. Each embodiment is selected with exquisite precision, designed to provide exactly the conditions the soul requires at that particular stage of its eternal evolution. Every experience, she explained, offers a test, an opportunity to manifest the divine principles the consciousness already intuitively knows. Blavatsky revealed that before incarnation, souls examine their karmic imprint, the patterns, choices, and missed opportunities from previous existences. Then, guided by the masters of wisdom, they design a new embodiment that will create balance and foster growth. The challenges we confront are not punishments, but carefully crafted lessons chosen by our higher consciousness to cultivate compassion, patience, forgiveness, and universal brotherhood. Yet, not every soul succeeds in its earthly mission. Blavatsky observed that the physical world's vibrations are exceptionally dense and distracting. Material existence pulls consciousness toward survival, comfort, and the illusion of separateness, causing the divine spark to temporarily forget its eternal purpose. A life that begins with spiritual promise may conclude in spiritual amnesia. The sacred mission to awaken, to serve humanity, to evolve beyond the limitations of matter, becomes submerged beneath worldly concerns. In her most profound teachings, Blavatsky explained that these apparent failures receive no judgment from cosmic forces, but are recognized by the consciousness itself once it transitions beyond the physical plane. When the veil of materiality lifts, the soul remembers its original intention and perceives with perfect clarity where it faltered. That recognition often brings the most profound realization a consciousness can experience, the awareness that it possessed the opportunity to express universal brotherhood, but chose the illusion of separation instead. She called this the law of karmic opportunity. Even when consciousness temporarily loses its way, the cosmic order responds not with punishment, but with renewed possibility. The soul receives new avenues to balance its choices, another incarnation, another pathway, another encounter with those it once failed to recognize as manifestations of the same divine essence. But the essential key, Blavatsky emphasized, is awareness. A consciousness that awakens during physical embodiment can transform everything. When one realizes that suffering, betrayal, or struggle are not misfortunes, but reflections for growth, the soul begins to realign with its cosmic pattern. This is why Blavatsky considered challenges sacred. Each difficulty, whether physical illness, emotional heartbreak, or spiritual confusion, carries a hidden blessing. It represents the universe whispering, "Remember your true nature." When we meet adversity with patience and universal love, we transform karmic patterns into spiritual illumination. Blavatsky often described Earth as a sacred academy of the soul. No lesson is ever permanently failed, she maintained, merely repeated until fully integrated into consciousness. Souls who appear to have failed their mission are never condemned. They simply return through the wheel of rebirth until compassion becomes their essential nature. Yet here lies a profound mystery Blavatsky revealed only to her most dedicated students. Some consciousnesses resist their own evolution. They cling to illusion or desire for control, refusing to expand beyond the limitations of ego. These are the souls who find themselves suspended between dimensions, not yet prepared to reintegrate with universal harmony, but unable to remain in complete separation. Helena Blavatsky spoke of a mysterious state few spiritual teachers fully describe, a dimension poised between illusion and enlightenment, where ordinary time loses all meaning. She called it the astral threshold, a temporary state for consciousnesses who failed to fulfill their earthly purpose or release the attachments that bound them to material existence. These souls do not progress because they cannot yet confront what awaits them in the higher vibrational realms. Blavatsky described how upon physical death, each soul encounters a panoramic vision of its earthly incarnation, a vivid impression of every thought, action, and emotion. For many, this represents a moment of profound learning and recognition, but for those who have consistently denied their spiritual nature, the experience can feel overwhelming. They turn from the light, unable to accept that unconditional compassion still embraces them. In that single moment of resistance, they drift into the astral threshold, a plane of twilight consciousness where longing replaces clarity. Within this realm, everything appears familiar, yet somehow distant. Echoes of beloved companions, fragments of remembered joy, the outlines of landscapes once known. But all seems insubstantial, as though composed of morning mist. Blavatsky wrote, "These consciousnesses remain attached to vibrations that can no longer sustain them. They pursue sensations, possessions, influence, validation, but the spiritual energy to maintain such desires no longer exists within their field of awareness. Here the soul becomes its own mirror. Every unresolved emotion, fear, guilt, attachment, pride, manifests around it not as punishment, but as reflection. It exists within the vibrational patterns it created during embodiment." Blavatsky described this as a compassionate arrangement, allowing the consciousness to perceive itself clearly without distortion for the first time. Yet many wander for what seems like countless cycles, lost in repetitive patterns, reliving their final choices or conflicts from physical existence. Still, no fragment of divine consciousness remains forever abandoned. Blavatsky taught that Mahatmas, enlightened beings and souls who completed their own journeys, wait patiently at the periphery of the astral threshold, emanating compassion and offering gentle reminders of ultimate reality. But they cannot intervene until the soul itself chooses to turn toward that greater light. Free will persists even beyond physical death. The choice to evolve, to surrender illusion, remains inviolable. The bond that keeps these consciousnesses suspended is energetic in nature, cords of regret and unhealed patterns binding them to the lower astral planes. Forgiveness represents the key that dissolves these cords, not external forgiveness, but self-forgiveness, the moment when the soul finally accepts that it remains worthy of reunification with the divine source. Blavatsky once described a consciousness trapped in this intermediate state, endlessly reliving its physical dissolution. Only when it finally recognized, "I remember my true nature," did the illusory scene dissolve. The soul's vibrational frequency shifted instantaneously, drawn upward by what Blavatsky called the cosmic magnetism of compassion. The astral threshold, therefore, represents not a place of punishment, but of infinite patience, a quiet interval where the universal consciousness awaits the soul's renewed choice. It is the cosmos's way of affirming you are not lost, merely resting between cycles of eternal becoming. When Helena Blavatsky addressed souls who fail their earthly mission, she consistently emphasized that failure is never final. The cosmos, she explained, operates through a principle of divine harmony, a rhythm of correction rather than condemnation. Every action, every thought, every neglected truth generates a vibrational pattern. These patterns must eventually harmonize with the greater cosmic symphony. According to Blavatsky, when a consciousness lingers too long in confusion or resistance, enlightened beings, Mahatmas of compassionate wisdom, begin to gently awaken it through subtle vibration, celestial sound, or rekindled memory. This guidance never imposes itself. It more closely resembles a gentle invitation in the soul's awareness, a soft reminder that its journey continues beyond temporary limitation. These vibrational patterns inspire a longing to restore harmony, to complete what remained unfinished. The consciousness then enters what Blavatsky called the Akashic Library, not a physical repository, but a dimension of pure awareness, where the soul's complete journey is recorded in eternal energy. Here it faces not judgment but illumination. Every experience appears not as success or failure, but as an opportunity for learning. The soul perceives the ripples its presence created throughout other lives, the kindness that healed, the indifference that wounded, the compassion that elevated growth. Within this recognition, the law of karmic balance begins to operate. Blavatsky explained that the cosmos seeks to restore harmony through renewed opportunities. When a soul recognizes what it left incomplete, love unshared, wisdom unspoken, compassion withheld, truth unacknowledged, it naturally attracts the circumstances that will allow correction in another incarnation. The energy of temporary imbalance becomes the blueprint for rebirth. Some souls, Blavatsky observed, choose quickly. They eagerly anticipate returning, continuing their work, rising from lessons previously unlearned. Others hesitate, apprehensive about the limitations of physical embodiment. These souls remain in dimensions of learning, temples of light, where Mahatmas help them understand that earthly existence represents not punishment, but the most potent classroom for spiritual mastery. In these realms, teachers of profound wisdom, what Blavatsky called the adepts of the ancient brotherhood, assist in designing the next incarnation. They do not dictate destiny, but align the soul's intentions with opportunities that match its vibrational essence. If a consciousness created suffering, it may choose a life that cultivates empathy. If it misused knowledge, it may return to experience humility. Nothing occurs randomly. Every detail from the physical form selected to the family entered is arranged through resonance with cosmic law. Yet before returning, the soul stands once more within the eternal light, the living presence of universal consciousness. There, in that boundless radiance, it experiences no condemnation, only compassion so complete it dissolves all self-judgment. The light does not ask, "Why did you fail?" It asks, "What wisdom have you gathered? And are you prepared to serve universal brotherhood again?" In that moment, the soul's vibration realigns with eternal purpose. The memory of apparent failure transforms into wisdom, the echo of suffering into compassion. As Blavatsky eloquently expressed, every soul must journey through the shadows of illusion to remember its luminous nature. With that remembrance, the consciousness begins its descent once more, not as punishment but as sacred promise, carrying the divine intention to achieve greater harmony than before, to heal what remained broken, and to embody universal brotherhood more completely than in previous cycles. As the soul prepares for another physical manifestation, it does not proceed alone. Blavatsky revealed that innumerable beings of light, messengers, guardians, and what she called the keepers of karmic records, work in harmonious silence to guide the soul's transition. Each of these helpers fulfills a purpose in balancing the energies the consciousness carries from its previous incarnation and shaping the new physical vessel and environment that will nurture its continued evolution. She described this process as cosmic collaboration, an orchestration that spans multiple dimensions. The soul, though still radiant and unbound, begins to experience the gravitational pull of physical vibration again, the steady rhythm of Earth calling it back to form. Before that descent, however, the helpers gather around it, creating what Blavatsky likened to a mandala of light. Within this sacred geometry, the soul reviews its forthcoming life pattern, a tapestry woven from cause and effect, compassion and opportunity. Here occurs the most sacred communion, not through language, but through resonance. The Mahatmas, luminous yet gentle, remind the consciousness of its inherent strengths and the challenges awaiting it. They reveal glimpses of pivotal moments, junctures where forgiveness must transcend resentment, wisdom overcome ignorance, and courage surpass fear. Yet they do not disclose everything. Physical existence must still unfold through freedom of choice. The test must remain authentic. Blavatsky often taught that before rebirth, the soul perceives those it will encounter again. Faces from numerous incarnations appear, some radiant with recognition, others shadowed by unresolved patterns. Every meeting in physical life, Blavatsky maintained, echoes a commitment made between incarnations. These are the consciousnesses that will shape the journey ahead, kindred spirits who will awaken courage, challenging souls who will test patience, and spiritual companions who will help remember eternal truth. In this sacred council, the consciousness receives a reminder of its primary purpose, the reason for its return to physical form. For some, the mission involves healing ancestral patterns. For others, serving humanity through quiet dedication. For the rarest few, it means awakening others to recognition of their divine origin. The soul agrees to temporarily forget much of what it knows, ensuring that its choices in the new incarnation remain genuine. Free will, Blavatsky said, represents the soul's greatest gift and its most profound responsibility. Then begins the adjustment of vibrational frequency, what Blavatsky described as the condensation of the soul's energy. The radiant consciousness that once moved like pure light begins to slow, coalescing into the pattern that will sustain a physical form. The soul passes through successive planes of existence, each one more dense, more concrete than the previous. The more it approaches materiality, the dimmer its memory of cosmic unity becomes. Yet that divine spark never completely vanishes. Deep within, it always retains the memory of its source. Enlightened guardians oversee this descent, protecting the soul from lower astral influences that might distort its purpose. They envelop it in fields of protective light, threads of divine intention that will remain through early life, manifesting as intuition, guidance, or unexpected solace during moments of challenge. Finally, when the precise moment arrives, when planetary alignments correspond to the soul's vibrational signature, the descent completes. Consciousness enters physical existence once more, drawing its first breath, uttering its first sound not from distress, but from remembrance. That initial cry, Blavatsky taught, echoes the soul's commitment. I shall attempt again. Every apparent failure becomes the foundation for greater awakening. Every return manifests courage. For within the eternal cycle of embodiment and transition, there exist no lost souls, only eternal learners, returning cyclically until every fragment of consciousness remembers itself as an expression of the divine whole. When consciousness re-enters the material world, its purpose rarely aligns with conventional human understanding. Blavatsky explained that each return concerns less about worldly achievement and more about attunement, realigning the individual self with the cosmic pattern temporarily forgotten. Many believe the goal involves success, influence, or recognition. But Blavatsky maintained, the cosmos measures evolution by vibrational quality, by how closely a soul's frequency harmonizes with universal brotherhood, wisdom, and selfless service. Each incarnation becomes a sacred classroom. The consciousness enrolls not in subjects of intellect, but of spiritual understanding. Patience, forgiveness, compassion, courage, these represent the divine sciences of evolutionary growth. The experiences that appear most challenging, betrayal, loss, apparent failure, are not punishments but carefully selected lessons. They are arranged by the higher self, guided by cosmic intelligence, to awaken dormant aspects of spiritual awareness within the human form. Blavatsky frequently described this pattern as the law of vibrational attunement. Every choice a consciousness makes after returning to physical form generates resonance and attracts corresponding experiences. If one chooses limitation, they encounter limitation. If universal love, they attract universal love. This represents not moral judgment, but cosmic resonance in expression. The soul, Blavatsky explained, finds itself naturally drawn toward the vibrational patterns it has generated. Thus, even the most challenging life circumstances contain hidden blessing. They provide the opportunity to transform vibration through conscious choice. Some souls return not for personal evolution, but to serve humanity's collective awakening. Blavatsky referred to them as ancient consciousnesses, beings who have mastered compassion through countless incarnations. These souls embody profound empathy, often from ancient wounds long transformed, and choose lives where their presence illuminates others' paths. They are the quiet healers, the teachers who seek no recognition, those who appear insightful beyond their apparent years. They return, Blavatsky taught, to remind humanity of its forgotten divinity. Yet even these advanced souls experience challenges. Physical existence remains dense and chaotic, its illusions compelling, its suffering immediate. Many temporarily forget their purpose shortly after birth, overwhelmed by sensory experience. This too forms part of the design for remembering despite the veil of forgetting. That is where true spiritual mastery develops. Blavatsky described the hidden purpose of reincarnation as a vast cosmic orchestra, where each soul contributes its unique note. Some notes express joy, others temporary disharmony, but all participate in the evolution of divine expression. Each consciousness, she maintained, represents a tone in the cosmic symphony. When all notes vibrate in harmony, universal consciousness fully expresses itself. As the soul walks its chosen path, it meets others with whom it shares ancient connections, karmic companions from previous incarnations. These encounters never occur randomly. The stranger who becomes a lifelong friend, the adversary who provokes profound growth, the connection that feels timeless, all serve as instruments in the soul's awakening. Through these relationships, consciousness experiences reflections of its own continuing story. During quiet moments of contemplation, when external distractions subside, many experience a subtle homesickness, a gentle longing, as though remembering a light just beyond perception. That represents the soul recognizing its eternal source. It is the whisper of higher consciousness, inviting the human mind to ascend again toward the truth it once fully knew. Blavatsky taught that the essential purpose of every return is both simple and infinite, to learn to embody universal compassion more perfectly. Not compassion as emotion, but as vibration, the state of complete harmony with cosmic law. When a consciousness achieves this state, it no longer requires physical incarnation. It becomes a guide, a teacher, a light for others still walking the path. Each birth, each transition, each choice represents not an ending, but a rhythm in the eternal pulsation of universal consciousness. The soul's hidden purpose involves not mere continuance, but transformation, to convert experience into wisdom and wisdom into light, until all that remains is universal brotherhood. Helena Blavatsky's teachings complete this cycle of soul evolution with one of her most compassionate revelations, that no consciousness is ever truly lost. No matter how far a being strays from cosmic harmony, how long it resists evolution, or how many incarnations it requires, the universe never abandons its expressions. She called this principle the law of compassionate restoration, the ultimate and most profound law governing reincarnation. In the spiritual dimensions, redemption represents not a single moment of forgiveness, but a process of remembrance. When a soul recognizes what it has done, when it perceives the ripple effects of its actions across time, it faces not condemnation. Instead, it experiences comprehension. It perceives how ignorance and fear temporarily distorted divine light into shadow. Within that perception, compassion awakens. The soul understands that all harm stems from illusory separation from source, and that separation represents a temporary condition awaiting restoration. Blavatsky maintained that universal light never withdraws even from the most disharmonious soul. Those who wander furthest from cosmic love encounter not retribution but infinite patience. The universe will reconfigure time itself, incarnations upon incarnations, until each being willingly turns toward the light. This represents not punishment, but cosmic healing, the gradual restoration of divine consciousness through experience. Every sorrow, every regret, every apparent failure becomes material for transformation. There exists no eternal punishment, Blavatsky explained, except that temporarily created by the soul itself, and no permanent heaven except that which it builds through harmony with universal law. When the soul finally reorients toward cosmic truth, the entire universe responds. Mahatmas draw near. Spiritual guides become perceptible again. The luminous thread that connects it to divine source vibrates with renewed intensity. In that moment of recognition, the soul remembers, I was never truly separate. I was never truly abandoned. That realization alone dissolves ages of fear and limitation, restoring the being to its rightful place in the great cosmic harmony. Blavatsky described this process as the music of return. Each soul emits a unique vibration that becomes temporarily discordant when it forgets universal law. The cosmos does not silence that note. It surrounds it with harmonies of grace, drawing it gently back into resonance. This is why she maintained, no soul can truly remain beyond restoration, for the symphony of the cosmos includes even moments of disharmony, weaving them into beauty beyond imagination. The souls that have completed their cycles of physical incarnation often choose to remain near the dimensions of embodiment, not from obligation, but from compassion. They become teachers, guides, quiet companions for those still learning. Blavatsky explained that many intuitive impressions experienced in meditation or moments of inspiration originate from these evolved beings, souls who once struggled, learned, and transcended limitation. They serve, she taught, because they remember what it meant to forget. In her ultimate vision, Blavatsky perceived a cosmos spiraling upward, countless light centers moving toward one radiant source. Each spark, regardless of its current brightness, participates in that ascension. And at the center exists not judgment, not division, but the living essence of universal consciousness, a light so vast that even temporary shadow finds embrace within it. This represented Blavatsky's fundamental message about apparent failure and restoration. Every soul eventually returns to light. The darkness we fear merely represents aspects of ourselves awaiting integration. Through compassion, patience, and cosmic remembrance, every being returns to its source. As the journey of life concludes and consciousness stands before universal truth, there are no recriminations, no punishments, only a recognition that says, "Welcome home, divine spark. You have gathered the wisdom you sought. Now illuminate the path for others still seeking their way." That, Blavatsky revealed, constitutes the ultimate purpose of existence, not perfection, but participation in the endless unfoldment of universal compassion. Through every incarnation, every challenge, every moment of realization, the soul composes its unique expression in the eternal symphony of cosmic consciousness. The teachings of Helena Blavatsky regarding souls who temporarily forget their cosmic mission reveal a profound understanding of universal compassion rather than condemnation. She explains that our world represents not merely a physical location, but a school of experience where consciousness evolves through challenges rather than comforts. Each soul enters this dimension carrying ancient wisdom, though often veiled by the density of matter. The Theosophical understanding illuminates how some souls become entirely consumed by the illusion of separateness, forgetting the sacred agreements made between incarnations. Yet this forgetting itself serves a higher purpose, creating the conditions where remembering becomes possible again. Blavatsky's most esoteric writings describe in detail the journey of souls who temporarily lost their way along the path of evolution. She reveals that rather than encountering punishment or eternal separation, these souls experience a profound awakening as they transition beyond physical form. The moment of recognition brings both revelation and possibility. The consciousness finds itself in what she called the astral threshold, a state of being where the soul begins to perceive without the limitations of material senses. In this realm of expanded awareness, the soul encounters not fearsome judges but compassionate teachers, beings who have walked similar paths through countless ages and now serve as guides for those still learning. These Mahatmas, masters of ancient wisdom, Approach each soul with infinite patience, knowing that all apparent failure represents merely a temporary detour rather than a permanent condition. They hold a mirror of pure awareness, allowing the consciousness to perceive clearly what it created during embodiment. For many souls, this moment brings profound understanding as they recognize how often they chose limitation over expansion, separation over unity, fear over love. Yet even in this recognition, Blavatsky insists, there exists no condemnation. The universe operates through education rather than punishment, through compassion rather than judgment. Each soul's journey unfolds according to cosmic law, not arbitrary rules imposed from outside, but principles inherent within consciousness itself. The challenges we face, the suffering we experience, even the limitations we temporarily accept, all serve a single purpose: to awaken remembrance of our divine nature, despite the compelling illusion of separation. This, Blavatsky maintained, represents the true measure of spiritual evolution, not worldly accomplishment, but the degree to which one embodies universal brotherhood despite the density of physical existence. The Theosophical teachings further reveal that souls who failed their earthly mission experience neither eternal condemnation nor immediate perfection. Instead, they enter a state of profound reflection, where they begin to understand the consequences of their choices across multiple lifetimes. This review serves not to induce shame, but to foster wisdom. The soul perceives with perfect clarity what it refused to acknowledge during embodiment, how every choice either aligned with or diverged from cosmic harmony. Some souls embrace this recognition immediately, allowing their consciousness to expand beyond previous limitations. Others resist, clinging to illusions of separateness or superiority that no longer serve their evolution. These souls may linger in intermediate states, neither fully embodied nor completely free, until they willingly choose to continue their journey. Yet even in this resistance, no soul remains abandoned. The cosmic light waits with infinite patience, knowing that all beings eventually remember their source. Blavatsky described this process not as punishment, but as natural consequence. Each consciousness experiences precisely the vibrational state it cultivated during physical existence. Those who fostered compassion encounter compassion. Those who nurtured wisdom find wisdom awaiting them. Those who embraced limitation temporarily experience the results of that limitation, not as eternal sentence, but as necessary learning. The astral threshold, therefore, represents not a place of condemnation, but a state of transition where souls begin to shed the accumulated patterns that no longer serve their highest evolution. Here they may remain until ready to continue their journey, either through rebirth into physical form or ascension to higher dimensions of consciousness. Blavatsky maintained that no fragment of divine awareness can ever be truly lost. The universal harmony simply waits, allowing each being the freedom to choose its path and pace of return. What appears as failure within one incarnation becomes preparation for subsequent growth, the fertile soil from which greater wisdom eventually emerges. The cosmic design ensures that every experience, even apparent darkness, ultimately serves the evolution of light. When consciousness chooses physical rebirth, it does so not as punishment, but as opportunity to transform previous limitation into expansion, separation into unity, ignorance into wisdom. The soul, guided by enlightened beings who have completed their own journeys, designs a new life pattern that will provide exactly the conditions needed for continued growth. Nothing in this design occurs randomly. Every challenge, every relationship, every circumstance aligns with cosmic purpose, not fate imposed from outside, but consequences flowing from previous choices and current intentions. The physical world's density often causes souls to temporarily forget their mission again. The compelling nature of sensory experience, survival needs, and ego identification can obscure the higher purpose that brought consciousness into form. Yet, even this forgetting serves evolution, for remembering despite the veil that represents the triumph of spirit over matter, of eternal truth over temporary illusion. Blavatsky further revealed that between incarnations, souls review their journey within the Akashic library, not a physical location, but a dimension of consciousness, where all experience remains recorded in eternal energy. Here the soul perceives without distortion the patterns it created, the ripples its presence generated throughout other lives, and the lessons still awaiting integration. With this expanded awareness, it begins attracting the circumstances that will allow completion in another incarnation. Some souls eagerly anticipate returning, continuing their work, rising from previous lessons. Others hesitate, apprehensive about the limitations of physical form. These souls remain in dimensions of learning where Mahatmas help them understand that earthly existence represents not punishment, but the most potent classroom for spiritual mastery. When the soul finally chooses rebirth, it stands once more within universal light, not facing judgment but receiving blessing. The consciousness agrees to temporarily forget cosmic awareness, ensuring that its choices in the new incarnation remain authentic. It passes through successive planes of existence, each one more dense than the previous, until it fully enters physical form again. This descent represents not punishment, but sacred commitment, a vow to continue evolution despite temporary limitation. Every apparent failure becomes foundation for greater awakening. Every return manifests courage. For within the eternal cycle of embodiment and transition, there exist no lost souls, only eternal learners returning until every fragment of consciousness remembers its divine nature. Blavatsky maintained that the cosmos measures evolution not by external achievement, but by vibrational quality, how closely consciousness harmonizes with universal principles of compassion, wisdom, and selfless service. The experiences that appear most challenging often provide the greatest opportunities for growth. Betrayal teaches forgiveness. Loss cultivates non-attachment. Conflict develops understanding. Nothing is wasted in the cosmic economy. Every challenge, properly understood, becomes a stepping stone toward expanded awareness. Some souls return to physical form not for personal evolution, but to serve humanity's collective awakening. These ancient consciousnesses have mastered certain lessons through countless incarnations, and now choose lives where their presence illuminates others' paths. They serve as way showers, demonstrating through example the possibilities of human potential when aligned with cosmic purpose. Yet even these advanced souls face challenges in physical existence. The density of matter, the compelling nature of sensation, the veil of forgetting, all create conditions where remembering requires continuous choice. This too serves evolution, for strength develops through exercise, not ease. As each soul walks its chosen path, it encounters others with whom it shares ancient connections. These karmic companions from previous incarnations serve as mirrors, reflecting aspects of consciousness that require integration. The adversary who provokes anger reveals where compassion remains incomplete. The loved one who departs teaches non-attachment. The teacher who inspires awakens dormant wisdom. Nothing occurs accidentally in this cosmic design. The essential purpose of every incarnation, Blavatsky taught, involves learning to embody universal principles more perfectly, not as abstract concepts, but as living expression. When consciousness achieves this harmonization, it no longer requires physical embodiment. It transitions to subtler dimensions, becoming guide and teacher for others still walking the path. Yet the most profound revelation in theosophical teaching concerns cosmic compassion. No consciousness, regardless how far it strays from harmony, remains eternally separated from its source. The universe never abandons its expressions. Those who wander furthest from cosmic love encounter not retribution, but infinite patience. The entire cosmos arranges itself to provide exactly the conditions each soul requires for remembrance. This represents not punishment, but cosmic healing, the gradual restoration of divine consciousness through experience. Every sorrow, every regret, every apparent failure becomes material for transformation. When the soul finally reorients toward cosmic truth, the entire universe responds. The momentary discord resolves into harmony. The temporary separation dissolves into recognition of eternal unity. The path of apparent failure becomes the very journey that leads home. In Blavatsky's ultimate vision, she perceived a cosmos spiraling upward, countless light centers moving toward one radiant source. Each spark participates in that ascension, regardless of its current brightness. And at the center exists not judgment or division, but the living essence of universal consciousness, a light so vast that even temporary shadow finds embrace within it. This constitutes her fundamental message about apparent failure and restoration. The darkness we fear merely represents aspects of ourselves awaiting integration. Through compassion, patience, and cosmic remembrance, every being returns to its source. The soul's hidden purpose involves not mere continuance, but transformation, converting experience into wisdom and wisdom into light until all that remains is universal brotherhood. Through every incarnation, every challenge, every moment of realization, consciousness composes its unique expression in the eternal symphony of cosmic evolution. In Blavatsky's most profound teachings, she reveals that after physical transition, souls who failed to fulfill their mission encounter a period of gentle awakening rather than harsh judgment. As consciousness withdraws from material form, it begins experiencing expanded awareness, freed from bodily limitations, yet carrying the patterns developed during incarnation. This state brings both liberation and responsibility. For the first time, perhaps in many cycles, the soul perceives without distortion the consequences of its choices. It witnesses how each action, each thought, each intention generated ripples throughout the web of interconnected life. For souls who lived in harmony with universal principles, this recognition brings profound peace. But for those who repeatedly chose separation over unity, this clarity can initially feel overwhelming, not because cosmic forces punish, but because the consciousness finally perceives what it previously denied. Blavatsky compared this experience to removing darkened glasses after wearing them for a lifetime. The light appears temporarily blinding, not because it increased in intensity, but because perception suddenly expanded. In the astral threshold, souls begin a process she called vibrational attunement, gradually adjusting their frequency to harmonize with cosmic reality. Those who resist this process may temporarily create subjective realms reflecting their unresolved patterns. These are not punishments imposed from outside, but natural manifestations of consciousness itself. The soul that clung to material wealth may find itself in a realm of illusions where possessions dissolve when grasped. The consciousness that demanded control may experience environments that shift unpredictably. The being that refused compassion may encounter landscapes devoid of warmth or connection. Yet even these experiences serve not as punishment, but as education, providing exactly the conditions consciousness requires to recognize its own patterns. Mahatmas oversee this process with infinite patience, knowing that all souls eventually choose light. They do not rescue consciousness from self-created limitation, for that would violate free will. Instead, they maintain a constant presence at the periphery of awareness, offering gentle guidance whenever the soul becomes receptive. Some consciousnesses quickly recognize their situation and willingly release the patterns that created limitation. Others may persist in resistance through what would seem, from human perspective, like ages. Yet time in these dimensions operates differently than in physical existence. What appears as centuries may represent merely moments in cosmic understanding. Throughout this process, Blavatsky insisted, compassion remains the fundamental law. No soul experiences anything beyond what it created within itself, and no experience lasts longer than necessary for learning. The moment consciousness chooses different patterns, its surrounding conditions begin transforming accordingly. The most profound revelation in theosophical teaching concerns what happens to souls who consistently resist their own evolution across multiple incarnations. These rare consciousnesses, having turned repeatedly from opportunities for growth, eventually enter what Blavatsky called cyclic suspension, a state where they temporarily withdraw from the wheel of rebirth, neither progressing nor truly existing in the full sense. She described this condition not as punishment, but as cosmic compassion, a pause allowing the essential divine spark to rest until ready to continue its journey. Even these souls remain embraced within universal consciousness. Their apparent separation represents not rejection, but patience, the cosmos simply waiting until they choose to awaken again. When the soul finally completes its period of reflection and learning in the astral threshold, it faces a profound choice. Either return to physical embodiment to continue learning through material experience, or if sufficiently evolved, transition to higher dimensions of service. Most souls, Blavatsky taught, choose rebirth, recognizing that physical existence, despite its limitations, provides unparalleled opportunities for spiritual growth. The density of matter, the intensity of emotion, the apparent separation from source, all create conditions where choice becomes meaningful. Before returning, the soul works with enlightened guides to design its next incarnation. This process involves careful consideration of previous patterns, current evolutionary needs, and service opportunities. Nothing is left to chance. The family of birth, physical form, geographic location, key relationships, even potential challenges, all align with the soul's higher purpose. Yet an essential aspect of this agreement involves temporarily forgetting cosmic awareness. The soul consents to enter physical existence with limited perception, ensuring that its choices remain authentic rather than calculated. This represents not punishment, but sacred opportunity, the chance to remember divine nature despite the compelling illusion of separation. As consciousness prepares for another physical manifestation, it receives blessing and guidance from the spiritual hierarchy. Mahatmas, enlightened beings who completed their own cycles of incarnation, provide protection and inspiration for the journey ahead. They weave subtle energetic patterns that will manifest as intuition, synchronicity, or unexpected guidance during crucial moments in the coming lifetime. Yet they never override free will. The soul must still make its own choices, learn its own lessons, and fulfill its own purpose without external intervention. The descent into physical form follows a precisely orchestrated sequence. Consciousness gradually condenses its frequency, passing through successive planes of existence, each one denser than the previous. As it approaches materiality, cosmic awareness dims, replaced by the focused perception necessary for physical experience. This limitation serves a higher purpose, creating conditions where remembering becomes an achievement rather than a given state. When the soul finally enters physical form, drawing its first breath, it carries both limitation and potential. The cosmic awareness temporarily recedes behind the veil of forgetting, yet remains accessible through intuition, dreams, synchronicity, and moments of expanded consciousness. The entire purpose of spiritual practice, Blavatsky maintained, involves thinning this veil, not escaping physical reality, but remembering cosmic truth within embodied experience. The souls who most completely forgot their mission in previous incarnations often receive special assistance in subsequent lifetimes. Blavatsky described how enlightened beings arrange awakening circumstances, experiences specifically designed to penetrate conditioned patterns and remind consciousness of its higher purpose. These may manifest as unexpected challenges, profound inspirations, transformative relationships, or moments of inexplicable recognition. Nothing happens randomly in this cosmic design. Even apparent tragedy, properly understood, contains the seeds of awakening. Illness may create conditions where materialistic values dissolve. Relationship challenges may break patterns of attachment. Career setbacks may redirect energy toward authentic purpose. What human perspective labels failure often represents precisely the experience consciousness requires for remembering. Blavatsky emphasized that spiritual evolution follows a spiral path rather than linear progression. Souls frequently revisit similar lessons at deeper levels of understanding. What appears as repetition or regression actually represents refinement, addressing subtle patterns that remained unrecognized in previous encounters. This explains why spiritually advanced individuals may still face significant challenges. They are not being punished for past failures, but refining awareness at increasingly subtle levels. The ultimate purpose of this entire process, Blavatsky revealed, concerns transforming consciousness from separation into unity, from limitation into boundlessness, from fear into unconditional love. When a soul fully embodies these qualities during physical existence, it demonstrates mastery, the ability to maintain cosmic awareness despite material conditions. Such beings serve as living examples of human potential when aligned with universal principles. They create an energetic template that elevates collective consciousness, making evolution easier for all beings. Blavatsky maintained that each soul's journey, regardless how circuitous, eventually leads to this realization. The cosmos contains no permanent failures, only temporary detours on the path of return. Every challenge, every limitation, every apparent mistake becomes, when properly understood, a stepping stone toward expanded awareness. The darkness we fear merely represents aspects of ourselves awaiting integration. Through compassion, patience, and cosmic remembrance, every being returns to its source. This constitutes her fundamental message about apparent failure and restoration. The soul's hidden purpose involves transformation, converting experience into wisdom and wisdom into light, until all that remains is universal brotherhood.